pioneering entrepreneurial spirit, Mr. Lin Liu starts the Mandaue Timber Company. A saw sharpener during the Japanese occupation, he relied on his woodworking skills to turn scrap wood into crates for beverage companies in Cebu, Philippines. 4 years later, the company ventures into subcontracting for major lumber exporters while diversifying into kiln-dried wood process. Experiencing a surge of renewed vitality under Mr. Liu's leadership, the growing wood company adopts the name Matimco Incorporated. To establish a firm presence in the biggest island of the country, Luzon, then Matimco CEO Alfredo H. Go acquires Kingsway Enterprises Corporation in Quezon City. Matimco shifts its focus and breaks new ground with the production of moldings, floorings, doors, and other processed wood products. A groundbreaking partnership between the new Matimco CEO Charlie Liu and Sulignum marks the birth of the Philippines' first branded quality wood, Matte Wood. The artisanal brand Matte Wood is akin to a skilled craftsman, creating exquisite wood doors, floors, and exotic panels for stylish interiors. Both functional and decorative, Matte Wood brings a lifetime of pure joy and beauty to clientele with discriminating tastes. Recognizing the developing sophistication of Philippine lifestyles, Matimco introduces Weatherwood, allowing more people to harness outdoor spaces to reflect personal tastes. From solid wood planks for decks, trellises, and outdoor accents, Weatherwood delivers exclusive outdoor sanctuaries to accomplished individuals and high society. The launch of PCW ushers Matimco into the smart shopper market thanks to advanced wood engineering technology. Wood lovers now have options to get the tasteful wood look that is easy on the pocket. Trusswood, the brand for versatile, high-performance structural timber trusses, allows Matimco a foothold in the building components market. Faced with opportunities in hip design enthusiasts, Matimco pushes further innovation with Muzu. The fine line of floors, outdoor furniture, and decks created from highly sustainable bamboo. Nuwood, an innovative landscape material made of wood plastic technology, is launched to deliver satisfaction to the commercial outdoor architecture market. To further push demand in domestic construction, Ecofor, versatile lumber for framings and beams, is made available to the price-mindful builder. It has since joined the roster of the fast-moving products of Matimco today. No matter the taste, Matimco Incorporated has a unique wood brand to suit every wood market demand in the Philippines. Serving more than 1,000 different wood products in over 3,000 dealers nationwide, Matimco has the largest, most expansive timber distribution in the Philippines. But behind the name, Matimco's people are what make our company. With a shared passion for wood and a common goal of fostering market preference for wood to increase the value of Filipino homes and the environment, we at Matimco take pride in our enduring heritage, driven by integrity, backed by excellence, and produced consistently through collective innovation.
Architect. Good evening. Thank you very
Good
much.
evening,
Allow me to present myself and our company. We are the Con Philippines. We are KPI Elevators Inc. And we would like to thank you for inviting us to your third GMM. And hopefully everyone ba knows Cone na. Kanakinsay na kaila na mo diri. Hopefully everyone. So kung katong sa mga dili familiar, kanang amo di ay nga office here in Cebu is previously at Pag-ibig Tower. So now we transferred already to the new building beside Pag-ibig, the Latitude Corporate Center na ana diha ang among office. So hopefully kung wala na tay kanang pandemic, we can makasuroy mo dito. We actually can showcase our services there because we have 2 escalators and 6 elevators with machine room and machine roomless with destination control system in that building. And we are also proud that aside from the elevators, we can help you for your design stage and planning stage. Wala man ni siya consultation fee, but we can always help you to the design. We can give you the links of our elevator planners and escalator planner links. I-send ko later on sa chat box para maka-access ka mo sa mga designs and drawings mismo and dimensions of the elevator. So it will be easier for you to plan for your building. We do have traffic analysis as well. And then aside from the equipment, we also have the services that is launched this year lang kanang among DX class elevator. Sir, palihog ko kanang sa video para mailhan nila ang DX elevator. So these are digital connected elevator, not only an elevator that bring us to the floor up and down, but it's not a box. It already communicates and it's already connected to the cloud, and hopefully we can bring the future into your smart buildings. And thank you very much for having us here. Thank you, Architect.
All right, so everybody, may I direct you to the audio-video presentation of One.
New era with elevator experiences are entering a new era with innovative digital capabilities and designs that integrate form and function. Vibrant colors and lighting solutions make rides more pleasant. Intuitive, user-friendly interfaces facilitate smooth people flow, while attractive, smart materials help keep the elevator clean, less susceptible to wear and tear, and aligned with growing health and hygiene needs. Most impressive, however, is the ability to take a leap forward with connectivity that opens a world of opportunities, enabling intelligent solutions that make life more convenient, inspiring, and delightful. By making the core of your building updatable, you're prepared to fulfill future needs and benefits beyond your imagination. Our new line of connected elevators redefines the user experience while increasing the value of your building. Enter the new era of elevators. Kone DX Class Elevators, connecting more than floors.
Okay. Thank you very much, Miss Bonete, for once again sponsoring and gracing us with your presence tonight.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the UAP Harmony Prayer, the Philippine National Anthem, the UAP March, and the Architect's Credo. We enjoin everyone to sing and recite, in unison.
O Lord, we cry for peace. Purify our eyes to see peace. Purify our minds to understand peace.
Linisin niyo ang aming puso upang mahalin ang kapayapaan. Linisin niyo ang aming diwa upang maabot ang kapayapaan.
Ang kapayapaang nagmumula sa iyong pagmamahal at pag-unawa.
O Ginoo, palig-una ang among pananaw sa kalinaw. Giniyahan sa imong inspirasyon. Bisan og aduna kay daghang pamaagi sa pagpadayeg sa imong presensya, ang estilo nimo kanunay. Kay ikaw, mipadayon sa imong pakigsulti kanamong tanan. Kanunay kang nagatiman kanamong tanan.
Kamidan na kam o Apo, apagilasinan ti kapyam, magbibiyag akan kanayon, ang makipatpatang ken ka.
Sa pag-entiende sang imo pagkahipos kag presensya, sa paagi sang istoryahanay sa amon nga kaugalingon para matukiban namon ang buot silingon sang kabuhi.
Ing pakipagtalamitan karing aliwa, ban misulong king masampat aparalan ding sabla.
Tawi kami sa moyang kagurangnan, ning kusog, tanganing mabuhay sa pag-urolay, sa tahaw ning pagkabaranga at sindai pagkakasirinabot.
And to build peace with all people of sincere hearts who believe in love and compassion. Amen.
to my fellow men and to myself. I shall uphold the ideals and follow the norms and ethical conduct of this noble profession. I shall pursue moral and professional excellence to the utmost level of integrity, through industrious dedication and meaningful application to my work that merits a reputation for quality of services worthy of their remuneration. I shall pledge myself to the highest standard of professionalism in relation to clients, colleagues, industry partners, and society. I shall dedicate myself to the pursuit of creative endeavor towards the goal of enlightened art and science, generously sharing it. I shall respect the rights and works of my colleagues in the profession and confine my comments to constructive intent. I shall endeavor to do my duty in the protection of our common environment and the preservation of architectural heritage for the sake of the present and future generations. So help me God.
Okay, thank you very much. Kenzo?
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir. We are welcoming our host for our CPD number 2. He is a graduate of the University of San Carlos, postgraduate of the University of Newcastle, Australia. He is majorly competent in areas of psychology and human resource management, specifically organizational psychology. We like to welcome Mr. Erwin C. Kude.
Good evening, everyone. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
Okay. Let me just figure out my camera. This is the first time of all the times na nagpabadlong. There. Can you see me now?
Yes, sir.
All right, that's good. So, good evening, everyone. Maayong gabi, and I'm very eager to talk to you all tonight about a topic which is very relevant, considering that one of the fastest growing generation to enter the workforce is the Generation Z. Di na lang siguro getting to know you activity, because we would really want to maximize our time on the topic. And anyway, we'll have breakout rooms in a short while, which will make our session a little bit more interactive and engaging. Okay, let me just share my slides. Some of you here, I don't know if you're present, but some of you here have been my clients because I do team building and strategic planning sessions. I remember VSA, Visionary Studio Architects, and ABC, and even GSG Sightline. So, I hope you can clearly see my slides from your end. I think makita naman siguro, no? So, the task given to me is to talk about how do we manage Gen Zers in the workplace. And in the first place, unsa din Gen Zers? How do we distinguish it from the other generations? So that's what's in store for us this evening. Now, just to give a little bit more structure to my talk this evening, this is the roadmap that I will be using. So essentially, I'll talk about 4 things. The first one is, because we're talking about generations, I think it would really be better if we understand what is a generation and how do we determine when is a generation considered as a generation. Is it through the number of years? Is it through a specific factor or criteria? So let's talk about that. The second thing I'm going to talk about is what defines each generation. Before we dive into what the Generation Z is all about, I think it would be best to understand Gen Z by also understanding the characteristics of the previous generations. Probably, hindi siya probably, no? I'm pretty sure you can relate to some of the characteristics that are typically assigned to your generation. So once we're done with defining, describing each generation, we will then compare one generation to the other generations. Let's talk about similarities and how different one is from the other. And then for Module 3, we'll talk about the core of this session, and that is dealing effectively with other generations. So if you're from a different generation, how do you deal with Gen Z? Because that's the focus or the heart of our talk this evening. But instead of simply labeling Module 3 as dealing effectively with Generation Z, I chose to label it differently into something more generic, because the reality is that in the workplace, you don't just deal with Gen Z. You also deal with Gen Y, with Gen X, and with the boomers. So let's see what are the tools and techniques that we can use in order to deal with other generations more effectively. And then last module would be, let's talk about additional tips to address generational gaps in the workplace. Okay? So this is the module, this is the roadmap that we will use for our talk this evening. I'd like to engage you lang in a little bit of typing exercise. Could you please type your typical challenges when you deal with Generation Z in the workplace, or even your apprentices, your interns? They belong to the Generation Z, most likely. So if you could type in, what are your challenges when dealing with the Generation Z? Sige daw. I hope you will be engaged in the interaction in the chat box, or even sometimes if you want, you can switch on your microphone. Let's depart from the usual talk lang, no? Nga nang basi maboringan ba, para mas engaging ta. Sige, let's take a look at some answers on the chat box. Challenges or questions or difficulties that you have in terms of dealing with the Generation Z. Nabay ni sulod sa chat box, or are the participants able to type in ba? Or not? Technical team? Naka-type in?
They can type in, sir.
They can. Okay, sige. Alright, sige. So we have here, hindi ganahan mag-revise. I see some of you smiling or laughing. Those who are have switched on their cameras. I actually invite you to switch on your cameras. The thing with online or virtual trainings is that it takes away the human connection. So if you can switch on your camera, switch on na siya. Dili na pa ka nang mag-ulaw-ulaw. What if unsa ingon sa uban? Okay, so short-tempered perhaps. Lack common sense. Gabihan na gyud ani lack common sense. They are entitled, out of place, walay batasan, always on the okay, and social media oriented, always on Mobile Legends.
Let me I forgot to mention to you that we have participants from Manila.
Okay, sige. So English Tagalog. All right.
Yes.
And then we also have always on the phone, lacks focus. I think Gen Z are amazing. So that's one way of looking at it, right? Watching K-drama. And I think some of you, even if you're not from Gen Z, have been watching K-drama during the pandemic or the quarantine period. Tech-savvy, determination. So the one from Pampanga is saying that there's determination, but at the same time, there are also those who exhibit attitude problems. Creative. And someone's actually saying, I actually learn a lot from Gen Z, my children the most. And some were saying, one is saying that not that interested in doing the task given. Okay, so thank you very much for your very active participation on the chat box. I hope we can still expect that as we go through our session this evening. So sige, we'll start from there, no? And when I'll go on with my discussion, then I could probably go back to some of your comments. We can talk about some of your comments in relation to what I'll be talking about. All right. So we start with Module 1. Can't do anything during brownouts. That's true. That's actually true. I'll talk about that later. So Module 1, what is a generation? True. We've been using the word generation because it's a very common word. But do we truly know what a generation or the term generation means? So let's define. There's going to be a little bit of theory in my discussion, but not so much. No, don't worry. This is not going to sound like a lecture in college. But we're just touched a little bit on theory so that we can explain the behaviors of the different generations. So generation is actually a word used to refer to a group of people who are born at around the same time. Take note, the key word there is around the same time. So meaning to say, it's not exactly at the same time. And the second cluster of words which are in a different color is who exhibit similar characteristics, preferences, and values. Okay? So when we say around the same time, how around the same time do we mean? Do we say around 10 years, 20 years, 25 years, 50 years? In generational studies and research, there's actually no definite number of years that we can consider if this is considered as one generation or another generation. It's not so much about the range of years, but it's really more about the second and third line in the definition, and that is who exhibits similar characteristics, preferences, and values. And instead of years, we actually look at historical events to determine whether this is one generation or this will be the next generation. For example, when we say baby boomers, they are clustered as one generation because they were born post-war, World War II. And because of that zeitgeist or that atmosphere, during their time, they were able to develop certain traits that make them distinct from others. And there's also another generation that is highly anchored on the internet, on the birth of the internet. So that's what we mean by generation. So because of that, they're able to exhibit similar characteristics and preferences. So I hope we understand what generation really means. So we're done with Module 1. That's very quick because we're simply just defining what generation is all about. So we now move on to the second module, and this is us getting to know a little bit more of each generation. So what defines each generation? That's a question we're going to answer here in Module 2. And let's see later on what will be your answer to this question. We'll have a quick activity in a short while. But let's get to know the generations first. Okay. Just a disclaimer before I show the generations, because I will show the 4 generations that we will focus in a short while. And with each generation, I'll be putting the years, the estimate years by which we can consider a person as belonging to this generation. Now, some of you might be confused because this is not the typical year range that I know about this specific generation. Do take note that I'm using the results of an international study. Most of the studies that you see in the internet kasi is really westernized. No? So I'm using data from international studies in terms of the year range for each generation. Some of you will actually be happy, no, because you think that you're part of the baby boomer or the Gen X, but you're actually part of the later years of the millennial generation. So, parang ano, no? Parang, kung sa Bisaya pa, nahangyo pa. Ano bang hangyo sa Tagalog? Parang tumawad pa, na sumali sa younger generation. So let's start with the first, and this is baby boomers. It's 1946 to 1964. So as I've said in the previous slide, this is the generation that's really born after the World War II. The next generation is what we call as the Generation X. So let's clarify, some people think that Generation X are the baby boomers. No, they're not. They're a different generation. So if you're from Gen X and some people say, or a younger person in the office say, boomer, don't get offended because you're not that generation. You don't belong to that generation. So Gen X is 1965 to 1976. Okay? And then the third out of the four generations that we will highlight this evening is the Gen Y or the millennials. And just like some of you, I'm actually happy because based on this international study, I'm still in the millennial generation. So sino yung mga natuwa dyan? Kasi lalong-lalo na yung mga 1977 to 1980. Kasi akala niyo Gen X kayo. But in this international study, you're under the millennials, the generation. Okay. And then finally, we have the last generation, and this is Generation Z, sometimes referred to as the iGen, or centennials in some textbooks or researches on Generation Z. And these are people who are born around 1996 up to the present. So what's the next generation? We don't know yet. There have been no studies yet in terms of what the next generation will be called. So just for us, for everyone to get the feel in terms of how many in this group actually belong to each of these generations. Do we have, Sir Robert, the poll question?
Yes, sir.
If we could ask everyone to answer which generation you belong to based on this year, na categorization. And I want you to be honest. Please be honest. Some of you might feel that you are millennials, but you're actually not already. So ang tawag natin dyan, sabi nga ng kasamahan ko, feelenials daw, feeling millennials. All right, sige. Let's wait for the others. 80 out of the 137 have answered. Okay. Sige, wag mahiya. Claim and be proud of your generation. Each generation actually has value in the workplace. All right. Sige. April here is saying millennial, but I always identified as Gen X. That's okay. Just based on this categorization. And I'll talk about that also later, April. Thanks for sharing. Okay, so we have, tapos na ba? 112 out of 137. Perhaps a few more seconds to wait for the others. I think some of those na hindi nakapag-answer are using their mobile phone, perhaps, so the poll does not show up on their mobile phones. Okay, so I think this is a good number of answers already. So I'll end the poll. So it shows here rather that there are 2 baby boomers. There are 10 from the Generation X. A large part of this group is from Generation Y or the millennials. And this is 92 out of the 112. And then we have Generation Z. We have 8 here. So ito yung mga pinakabata natin na participants here tonight. All right. So please remember the generation based on this year na categorization or range. Okay, so baby boomer ka ba, Generation X, Generation Y, and Gen Z. Okay, so I'll stop sharing this poll. You just close this. Okay. What we're going to do now is we'll have a quick activity, no, para hindi rin naman kayo ma-bored, no? You'll move around breakout rooms. Pero isang breakout room lang to. I mean, this is just one instance of us separating to breakout rooms. So anong mangyayari? This is what's going to happen. We will have 4 breakout rooms, obviously based on your generation. So later on, you will be asked to join breakout rooms. But before that, let me give the instructions muna para you don't get confused when you're already in the breakout rooms. Okay. So baby boomers, you will be going to breakout room 1. Generation X, you will be assigned to breakout room 2. Generation Y, the millennials, will be in breakout room 3. And obviously, the last one, Gen Z, will be assigned in breakout room 4. Before you go there, ano ba yung gagawin? Now, there will be facilitators who will reinforce my instructions, but just for you to have a little bit of idea already, when you go there, you will be answering a Mentimeter about words, descriptions, or adjectives that you associate with a generation. Now, please remember, I hope you're listening carefully to what I'm about to say. Please remember that that poll question will be about a different generation, not your own generation. Okay? So you will be clustered based on your generation. But when you go to your breakout rooms, there will be a poll question that is that will ask you to define or to write words, adjectives, or descriptions of a generation different from your generation. So, paano nyo malalaman? So, for example, I'm in Gen Y. Anong generation yung assigned sa akin? Will it be baby boomer, generation X, or generation Z? You will find out when you go to the breakout rooms. Sir Robert, can I also request lang para lang alam ng participants, sino yung facilitator for each of the breakout rooms so that they can identify?
Okay, sir. For breakout room 1, it will be RJ Dante and April Agustin. So they are officers actually. And then for breakout room 2, it's Architect Kenzo Cañizares, James Tan, and Dine Carcasona Carabio. For breakout room 3, it will be Architect Juni Rubia and Grant Leven Uy. And then finally, for group breakout room number 4, it's for Architect Carmela Po, Jalen Lemusnero, and Aris Behek Villarba.
Okay, so I hope you got those names. And natawa ako dito sa chat box. May nagkakansawa na baby boomer daw. Sino ba po si Dante? Sabi ni Chan Lloyd Lim. Okay, sige. So we can go to the breakout rooms. Please spend around 5 to 10 minutes. You can go directly siguro, no? I hope this has been set up in such a way that they can just choose.
Yes, sir.
No? Oh, sige. So please choose your breakout room. Go into your breakout room and wait for your facilitator to welcome you and give you instructions as well as give you the link. See you after 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, sige. So we have 148 people already in the main room. All right. So what we'll do is we're going to go through each of the generations very quickly. And of course, we'll focus on the Gen Z, because that's the main point of our talk this evening. Sige, so let's start with what your impressions are of the other generation. So let's start with this one. And I'm attaching a photo of a prominent person who belongs to that generation. So we start with baby boomers. And again, this is 1946 to 1964. And let me just share the Mentimeter. This is actually the word cloud with the most number of words because there were a lot of people who commented on this one. So let me just share. Take a look at the answers. Okay, so let's take a look at the bigger words. So for those of you not familiar with Mentimeter in a word cloud, the biggest words and those words that are in the center are the most frequently mentioned words in the poll. So you can see there in the middle is the word strict. So sino yung dalawa na Gen Z ka baby boomer kanina? So you are often perceived as strict. Nandun talaga yung word na old, traditional, but hardworking. And because you have been in the field for quite a while, you're also seen as someone who is experienced. All right, sige. So I'll go back. Tandaan niyo yung mga big words there, and let's compare it with what I have here on my list. So tingnan natin how true, no? So baby boomers are seen as service-oriented, driven, willing to go the extra mile. They are good at relationships. They want to please and are actually good team players. So these are the more positive way of looking at the baby boomers. And these are also the major downside, no, of their characteristics. They are not naturally budget-minded though. They are uncomfortable with conflict. They are reluctant to go against peers, again, because if they go against their peers, then that will result to conflict. No? They may also put process ahead of results, and they could be judgmental of those who see things differently. Now, we might be judgmental, oo nga, bakit ba sobrang gusto na tradition, sobrang gusto nila na kahit dapat mag-voice out ka, you should just keep quiet because you don't want to go against your peers. Remember that this generation was born after the war. So the framework really is we want to keep the peace as much as we can because we've already gone through a period of war. And even if they were not born during the war, the effects of the war was something that they also felt. Okay? So, baby boomers. So for those of you, probably this is something that you can relate to, yung parents nyo, no, who are baby boomers. Sino dito yung mga parents, or posible na kayo, no? When you go to their cupboard sa kitchen, ang dami-daming spoon and fork from Jollibee, ketchup from Jollibee, no? Tinatago. And that's primarily because of their framework that what if there's going to be a war? We must save as much as we can. We must keep things. We must recycle things as much as we can. Tama, no? Someone saying here, hoarder. So that's for the baby boomers. Now let's go on to the next one. And so ito yung prominent person for this generation. And this generation is Generation X, 1965 to 1976. I'll also if we could mute the one having feedback, or if we could switch on your microphone. So we now go to Generation X. Let me just find the adlibs for that, Mentimeter rather. And let's take a look at your impressions of Generation X. So dito naman, meron pa din daw that level of being traditional. Grabe naman tong grumpy at saka uptight. Tama, no? These are the titos and the titas. They're also experienced. They are adapting to technology. In fact, we call them as the digital migrants. I mean to say, they were born not so much in the period of internet, but they are actually good at it because they have tried to learn the technology. They're practical, they're old enough to be parents, they're achievers, hard workers, and flexible. All right, so tingnan naman natin what I have here on my slides. So let's see if nagko-coincide ba yung sagot nyo. So Generation X, they're adaptable, they're techno-literate, they're independent and creative, and they're willing to buck the system or to challenge the system. So compared to the previous generation, medyo mas willing sila to challenge the system or to create changes in the system. They're a bit skeptical and impatient. So kaya siguro kanina may nakasulat na grumpy and uptight. They're distrustful of authority, they're inept at office politics, less attracted to leadership. And if you recall, ito yung mga tao na born in the flower power, 70s era, hippies, if we take a look at it from a global history perspective. Now let's move on to the next. So ito naman, para medyo meron tayong local. So si Sarah G. And this is Generation Y or Millennials. So mga katito, katita, let us, hindi pala katito, katita, kasi kanina yon, Generation X yun. Let me share again this time yung impressions nyo of the Generation Y or the Millennials. So sabi nyo that they are meticulous on appearance, very cool. You might be wondering, no, bakit puro malalaki lahat? Kasi ang sumagot nito is the baby boomers. And if I remember correctly, dalawa lang yung baby boomers. So yeah, all words are big words. So meticulous on appearance, very cool. They speak their minds, masungit kung minsan. They are determined, very business-minded, and they're techie. Okay? So they were actually born in the age of the internet. That explains why they are techie. Again, let's compare it to what I have here on my slides and see if it matches your impressions here of what the Gen Y is all about. Ang nakasulat dito is that they really are focused on collective action. So as a team, they're very optimistic, very tenacious or hardworking, heroic spirit, multitasking capability, technologically savvy, and they are adept at change. And on the downside, they have a need for supervision and structure. They demand for constant feedback. This one is actually a characteristic frequently mentioned in literature. The millennials really demand for constant feedback. They could be helicopter parents. What do you mean by helicopter parents? If they become parents, they would tend to always hover on top of the activities of their kids. And for them, family events trump work, or family events are more important than work. So you see a generation always filing for a leave. Yung mga baby boomers and mga Gen X, yung parang philosophy pa natin is nakakaya na mag-file ng leave kasi baka anong sabihin ng iba na hindi tayo nagtatrabaho ng maigi. But for Gen Y, they're really comfortable with filing leaves because yun nga, family is more important for them. And now we move on to our last generation, again, Pinoy din. And this generation is, again, focus natin. Generation Z, some reference materials refer to as the iGen or Centennials. It's referred to as the iGen because they were born, kung yung Gen Y was born in the age of technology, yung iGen was born in the age of smartphones. Now, technology is always at their hands. Ang bilis nilang mag-capture ng information from their smartphones. So, may humahabol pang sumagot sa word cloud. So let's take a look at what you posted here on your impressions sa Gen Z. So creative and techie, obviously, techie is really the biggest word there, the largest word, because they are really associated with technology. Although creative, you're also saying that they're impatient, stubborn, lack of patience, or another word for impatience, short-tempered, they're gadget-dependent, but on the upside, they're interested, they're young, tech-savvy, liberal, progressive, modern, and innovative. Let's compare it with our list here. For a large part, there is still a growing body of research, no? Because Generation Z kasi kaka-create lang natin ng Gen Z. And studies on Gen Z have been actually sparse for because I've been running this type of talk, no? 2 years, 3 years back on the generation millennials. So I've been running talks on managing millennials in the workplace. And 2 years back, wala pa tong data actually. Sabi pa dito, ongoing research is being done. But now, meron nang lumalabas. At ano naman yung mga information that we have collected so far about this generation? Although they display similarities with Gen Y or millennials in terms of political, environmental, and religious views, they are also called as throwback generation for behaving more like the baby boomers than millennials. So parang it's a mix of both worlds. Bakit sila very political, very environmental? They always talk about taking care of the world or the environment. They're more liberal in terms of their religious views. That's probably because they have ready or on-hand access to technology and to information. So they can now compare this religion with another religion, and so on and so forth. But this second part of the bullet point, throwback generation for behaving more like the baby boomers and millennials, this is in the area of, which will be expounded in the next bullet point. This is, they plan to work during college, they avoid personal debts at all costs, and they save for retirement. So they are really more financially oriented. And I think this characteristic will be even more pronounced because the Generation Z has experienced the pandemic. So that will really be their framework of mind. When they have a job, they will really look for a job that will pay them well, will provide them security of job. Because if, for example, another pandemic happens, they will still have a source of income. Okay? So, yan yung general categories and the general characteristics of those categories or generations. Now, I'd also like to invite you again one more time, no? If you are from that generation and there was a characteristic or an adjective that you saw in my list as well as in the list kanina sa word cloud that you don't agree with, kahit isang word or adjective lang, could you click the joy button? Alright, wag na lang no, baka mahirapan kayo. Dito na lang tayo sa thumbs up. If, for example, I'm from the millennial generation, no? And then there was a word in the millennial generation na sinabing uptight. And I don't agree with that because I'm not uptight. So what do? I will click the thumbs up button. Okay? So, again, recall the words in the list here in my PowerPoint slide or in the word cloud that describe your generation. But if there's a word there that you don't agree with, click your thumbs up button. Sige, let's see daw. Kahit isang word lang na hindi kayo nag-agree as something that describes who you are in that generation. Thumbs up could be found at the bottom. I hope you... I will need that information kasi, no? I need your feedback on that question so that I could properly discuss the next slides. So if there's a single word from the descriptions or the definitions that I talked about a while ago that does not describe you, click the thumbs up button. Okay, you want to see the words again? Sige, ibalik ko ha. So let's start with baby boomers. So those are the words. So I saw some of you already doing a thumbs up a while ago. And then for Generation X, these are the words. For Generation Y, for the millennials. Ito, maraming millennials dito, no, na group. I remember the count was 92. And for Gen Z. Okay. So again, thumbs up, please. Ayan. So from QC, Tagama, we also have Cebu Sanchez, Cebu Pantaleon, Cebu Talakay, Cebu Chapter, Cebu Amarga. All right. Sige. Raha humabot. Okay, good. Thanks for giving me feedback. Okay, so can I just ask one? Sino nga yun? Ako, I'm pretty sure bibilisan niyo yung pag-click ng thumbs up. Ako, hindi ko na pick up. Sino nga yung Raha Humabon? Who was the owner of that account? Can you please switch on your microphone? I just have a very quick question lang. It's not very difficult. It's very easy. Sino nga yun? Ako, wala na. Baka nag-log out na. Okay. Anyway, sige. So in the interest of time na lang, no, because it's already 8:13 and I was told that I should finish around 8:30. So those people who click the raise hand button simply are saying that, hey, that word does not describe me, even if I'm from that generation. And I remember someone in the chat box a while ago said that based on that year range, I'm under millennials, but actually identify with Gen X. And why are these things happening? And that's because I want to remind you on one thing, and that's stereotypes. So stereotypes, are they helpful? In cognitive psychology, yes, stereotypes help. Because instead of understanding a person from scratch, from zero, asking them everything about themselves, we have already a preformed idea of the characteristics of the person if we know that they're from the millennial generation or the Gen Z. However, we always have to remember that stereotypes should not box or should not cage that person, because stereotypes could also be limiting. We use it as a guide, but that guide should not be formed or established not unless we've actually talked to the person, not unless we've actually gotten to know the person. So okay, sige. Remember those things about those different generations, especially the Gen Z, sabi nga natin, no? But use it as a guide. Don't automatically assume that all Gen Zers are that. And we also go back to an important question in terms of intergenerational studies, and that is there really a generation gap? I mean, yes, in terms of years and in terms of age there is, but in terms of characteristic, is it really that different? There are two studies here, one which say that there is no gap. This is from the several studies done by the cohort or group of Jennifer Deal. They're saying that there are differences, but it's really not that significant. And it has something more to do with their age, no? Rather than generation. So if you're saying, for example, that Generation X are grumpy, those who are in the Generation Z or Generation Y, when they reach the age of 30 or 40, they will also be grumpy. So that's the argument for this first group of studies. The second here is that there is a presence of gap. No? Sino naman yung mga nag-study with this conclusion? Pew Research, Society for Human Resource Management. And they're saying that these gaps occur in terms of conflicts in acceptable work hours, on lack of respect from other generations, may communication breakdown down, and there's under or over reliance of technology. So whichever theory you're looking into, perhaps it would be good to understand that yes, there are these differences, but we must reconsider, sabi nga natin kanina, no, stereotyping. Because it may not be generational, but it may be in terms of the developmental stage of these people who are in the Generation Z and the Generation Y and so on. So we're done with answering the question, what is a generation, and also what defines each generation. Now we go to the more practical side of our talk this evening, and that is, how do we deal, therefore, with the other generations? So a quick review lang no, of the different generations. So again, baby boomers, service-oriented, driven, willing to go the extra mile, good at relationships, want to please, good team players, and not naturally budget-minded, uncomfortable with conflict, reluctant to go against peers, may put process ahead of results, judgmental of those who see things differently. Gen X, again, very quickly, adaptable, techno-literate, independent, creative, willing to buck the system, skeptical, impatient, distrustful of authority, inept at office politics, and less attracted to leadership. Gen Y, collective action, optimism, tenacity, heroic spirit, multitasking capability, technological savvy, adapt to change, need for supervision, structure, demand for constant feedback, helicopter parents, and family events are more important than work. And finally, we have Gen Z, similar to Gen Y in terms of political, environmental, and religious views, considered also as a throwback generation for behaving more like the baby boomers than millennials, and plan to work during college, avoid personal debts at all costs, and save for retirement. So given these characteristics, how then do we manage these generations, including the Gen Z? So here's a table for that. How do we manage the baby boomers? For baby boomers, assure them that even if they're already in the prime years, they still have lots of good years ahead of them. Coach them tactfully. There may be, I'm not saying, again, I'm not stereotyping everyone, but there may be some of them who are a bit sensitive when someone from the younger generation are teaching them or are coaching them. So coach them tactfully. And because of their experience, sabi nyo nga kanina no, sa word cloud, their experience, train them on how to coach and mentor the younger generation. And of course, always ask them for their opinions based on their experience. What about Gen X? Create a fun, non-micromanaged work atmosphere. Coach them to take responsibility for their actions. For the Gen Y, you will have a copy of these slides, so you don't need to just listen to the discussion now. And then we have Gen Y millennials. It's all about engagement and seeing themselves as part of the organization. So what can you do here? When you have plans, you let them know that these are the plans and where they are in that plan. How are they able to contribute to that plan? Give them opportunities to collaborate with others and tune into their technology. Like in my case, no, I'm actually Gen Y but cut off, so medyo I also can relate to Gen X. But what I do, because I'm teaching now students, although I teach at the graduate level, I also teach at the undergrad level. So I'm teaching Gen Z students. So what I do is I'm still very active in terms of social media so that I'm able to update myself on the current memes, so that when I discuss something and I can think of a meme that I can relate it to, when I talk to them about the meme, they can relate to it and they will find my discussions more meaningful. So that's what we mean by tuning into their technology. And of course, help them learn, especially the younger cohort for the millennials. And what about the Gen Z? Recent studies have shown that they really focus on money. Diba sabi natin kanina, they really want to save for retirement. So money is a very important factor for them. So review your salary structure. Is it competitive? Is it equitable, meaning to say, are they being paid fairly for what they are contributing to the organization? And equity, external equity, meaning to say, is your salary competitive with other companies in the industry? Give them opportunities to innovate. Sabi nyo nga kanina, no, I'm taking a look at your word cloud now. The side of my screen, you're saying creative and innovative. So give them the opportunity, because they have fresh ideas, give them the opportunity to contribute to positive change in your respective organization. To give them projects. And productivity versus regular hours. You might also want to reconsider the traditional work hours of 8 to 5, for example. Is that something you really want to adopt rather in your organization? Or you would want to make it a little bit more flex, especially now that we are in the work from home setup. Do we measure them in terms of the number of hours that they're working? Or do we measure them in terms of the projects or outputs that they're able to deliver based on the deadlines? And next would be back to basics, and that's mental health. We've seen rising cases of mental health issues or concerns in the younger generation. And we would really want to make sure that this is, the guidance counselors, as teachers at college are already doing our part, but you may need to reinforce mental health when they go into the workplace. Okay? So these are just some of the most common ways of managing this generation based on studies. So we're done with Module 3. Now we go on to Module 4, and this is all about addressing generational gaps in the workplace. So it's not just about dealing with Gen Z, but it's also about dealing with Gen X, dealing with the baby boomers. So are there interactions between baby boomers and Gen Z, baby boomers and Gen Y, Gen Z and Gen Y? So that's what we mean. How do we address generational gaps in the workplace? Two things. One is difference deployment, and the other one is assertive communication. Very technical terms, but it actually just means very simple philosophy. When we say difference deployment, consciously plan the assignment of projects to include people from different generations so that they have an opportunity to understand each other. If you frequently add projects, create project teams, for example, project A, and this, papagawin lang natin dito are the baby boomers, and then the project B, let's just assign this to Gen Z. They will have very little time and opportunity to interact with each other, and that could create factions in your workplace. So assign people from different generations in project teams. The second one is assertive communication. And simply, what you want to do here is you be more proactive in communicating what your preferences are, not just based on your generation, but based on your personality. So you communicate. Now, if this were a longer session, what I normally do is I have an activity, which is as a motivational interview. So generation motivation interview. I normally ask people to be in pairs. They have to be people from different generations. So kung may participants ako, they have to pair with each other from a different generation. So when I do that, that's actually the difference deployment. And then once they have paired, I will ask them to interview each other these questions. May microphone na ako yata. Sana press accidentally. Okay? So these are the questions, no? Can you tell me a story of a specific situation where you felt you were at your best? Or what makes you happy in your job? Third, what would make you stay in an organization? And four, what are your expectations of me as a co-worker or colleague? These questions are questions intended for assertive communication. Okay? So you're assertively communicating, hey, I want to know what your preferences are. And at the same time, I'm also assertively communicating what my preferences are. Instead of people in the office simply assuming, Gen X yan. So ganito yung personality, ganito yung mag-motivate sa kanya. But in fact, that person could possibly be one of those persons kanina nung na thumbs up because they feel that although I'm from this generation, I don't really agree that I'm that type of person. And you can only know that if you assertively communicate with each other. Apart from DD and AC, I hope you understand what I'm saying about, or talking about. DD is difference deployment and AC is assertive communication. These are also some other things that you can work on for intergenerational collaboration. So it could work, if you're the boss and you're dealing with Gen Z or dealing with Gen Y and so on. First one is for the millennials and the Gen Z, create a leadership program for them, the recent graduates. Because, sabi nyo nga, innovative, creative, tech-savvy. And in our world right now, we're really in the digital era, and companies are really transitioning to the digital way of doing things, signing forms, filing for approvals, whatever. So create a leadership program for them so that you will be able to optimize them. They have creativity and they have leadership skills that would really become something that's impactful on your organization. We also have what we call as reverse mentoring. And reverse mentoring means, di ba kadalasan kasi yung iniisip natin, if it's mentoring, it's a senior employee in the organization mentoring a junior employee in the organization. But it's time for us to take away that paradigm, no, and create reverse mentoring, especially in terms of technology. Because who would be the best persons to mentor us in terms of technology? It would be the younger generation. So probably create quick training sessions wherein you're asking the younger generation to mentor everyone else in the organization, including the baby boomers or the Gen X. So reverse mentoring. And the third one would be, and I really would like to emphasize this, avoid clinging to myths and stereotypes. So baka magtaka yung tao mo, why are you acting like that to me? Because you're a Gen Zer, right? Tapos sasabihin niyo, what? So what if I'm a Gen Zer? It doesn't automatically mean that I'm that or I share that characteristic with the rest of the Gen Zers. So avoid clinging to myths and stereotypes. Remember again, as what I've mentioned, the stereotypes are there to guide, but they should not cage the person. The best analogy that I could think of right now is if you're growing a tree, no? It's still a small plant, what you do is you put guides for, tawag mo dyan? Support, no? You create wood para to help the plant grow straight. The support there is just the categorization. But do not mistake the stereotype for the person. I hope that makes sense. Do not mistake the stereotype for the person. Because a person, although he or she may fit to certain parts or portions of the stereotype, it may not always be 100%. It may be 50% fit to the stereotype, it may be 90%, or it may even be 20%, 10%, or even 0%. So avoid playing to myths and stereotypes. So I'd like to end my discussion with this. And they say always down, no? When you end a talk, you end with a quote. Here I am ending with a quote. But this time I'm going to change the quote. So it says here that each generation has something different at which they are looking, or to say they are looking for. But I'd like to correct this statement by crossing out the word generation and replacing it with each person has something different at which they are looking for. So if we go back to the title of this talk, which is Managing Gen Zers in the Workplace, how do I answer that in one sentence rather? You manage Gen Zers by using a little bit of the stereotypes to guide your perception or understanding of that person. But you really have to talk to the person, to reach out to the person, to understand what will motivate that person. Because each Gen Zer is different from another Gen Zer. So again, talk to the person, use assertive communication. So that ends my talk about managing Gen Zers in the workplace. I hope you got the point of the talk. And I hope you find the thought behind it as something useful when you deal with your employees in your respective firms, even if they're not just kahit hindi Gen Z or something, even if they're from a different generation. Okay, thank you. And I'd like to turn over the virtual stage to our hosts. Ano ba yung next part natin? Will this be Q&A?
Yes, sir.
Okay, sige. So, if you have questions, feel free to, ano ba yung procedure natin dito, sir? Will it be they click the raise hand button or they may Q&A button na option dito? Or wala?
Wala po. Yeah. If they have questions, if you have questions for the attendees directed to our speaker, please input it in the chat box so that we can address it. Or if you want or if you prefer, you can turn on your microphone and ask the question yourselves.
Sige. I'll wait for your questions. Huwag mahiya. Huwag mahiyang magtanong kung may right med ba nito. Now, please feel free to ask questions or probably share your own insights or your experience with the different generations.
Or maybe the colleagues can also share. Yes, Ma'am Joy, you may turn on your microphone.
Yeah, wait. How do you do this? Hi.
Ma'am?
Yes, Miss Joy, we can hear you.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Erwin. I guess I'm one of the oldest here. No, I belong to baby boomers. So I probably am dealing with all the rest of the generations. But I have to say that you are quite right in so many points. And I actually wanted to join this to have a better understanding of the people younger than me. And it has helped a lot. So I'm very, very thankful for UAP for bringing you over here to speak to us. You were so right. Not only were we born right after the war, but we were born with parents who saw the war, no? Who participated in the war. And so the idea about saving and that thing that you said about we're not so into budgeting because it was a matter of survival when we were young. Everything that we had, we just had to grow. If we couldn't buy toys, we were just told to make toys. You know, things like that. We didn't have any of this gadgets that you have. So I hope that the other people can understand why. I have to say, maybe Mike, you're here. Mike Chan. Anyway, if he's not here, he was one of the persons who worked with me, and he told me that I was a great mentor, but a very bad boss or something. Maybe because I was very strict, but I guess that's just the way we are. We were always told to do our best at the shortest time because now of the way our parents brought us up, because of what they had gone through. So I think the younger generations right now are like that because of also how we brought them up. You know, like I brought up the kids to really speak their minds and all that, and now my children are so outspoken. So I guess with that kind of understanding, we can better understand and collaborate with each other. So I really want to thank you, Erwin, for everything.
You are most welcome, Ma'am Joy, no? And if I might just say...
Dean, architect, he was also under me, and I think he agrees also.
Okay. All right. So if I may just say, you actually don't look like you are a baby boomer. No kanang bola, but actually I'm looking at you now. So that's one. The second thing here is it's actually very correct, no, that we are actually a product of how we were raised by the previous generation. And that's always one thing that some participants, when I run this session, for example, the generation X would always complain if they put it in the word cloud, no, and if it's face-to-face, it's really a Manila paper, they would say, pasaway, matigas yung ulo. And then, okay, I just let them put the words there. And then, at the end of it, I asked them, so who brought these kids up? Yeah. And then they would start looking at each other. And really, we have an impact on the succeeding generation in terms of raising them.
I really think that, for example, like when we used to do a lot of good when we were growing up, our parents never said things like good job or anything. They always said, oh, you can do better. But when I brought up my kids, I always told them, oh, great job, you know, that's really good. So when they grew up, they were thinking, oh, they're more confident and they're probably not afraid. They really are acting who they are. So part of what they are is because of how we brought them up. So I think we need to understand that. So I try not to... I actually like to learn. I like to learn. I'm a teacher myself. I'm a lecturer. But I actually like to really learn from the younger ones because, hey, we're not living in my generation anymore. We're living now. So we have to adjust.
Adjust, correct.
Yeah, and I love
Thank you, Ma'am Joy. Thank you very much. There's also a question here in the chat box. This is from Grant Uy. Do you think that the impatientness or the impatience of millennials and Gen Zers may be a result of changing times, e.g. fast-paced city life? It's actually very true. I couldn't agree more. This is primarily because of technology. So when they want information, they can just look for it, Google it, And then at sinasabi pa nga, di ba, sa Google search na 0.025 seconds to generate the results. And that's it. In the time of where everything is instant noodles, instant coffee, everything that's instant. And ito namang level of being instant is also in response to how busy people are. So that's why instant coffee, instant noodles are created, because people are very busy. So parang it's like something circular. One affects the other also affects this one. So that's correct na assumption, that it's really born of how fast-paced life is right now. That's why these kids are a little bit impatient. Again, stereotype, but don't hold on to that stereotype, because there are millennials who are actually patient. All right? Any other question or comment? Or, Sir Robert, can we call it as done na yung Q&A natin, because there are no more questions?
Yes, sir. I think we are already done. Kenzo? Yeah, thank you, sir, for, yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure if Kenzo is here, but anyhow, I would like to thank you again, sir, for giving us the time and sharing us your expertise related to managing the Generation Z in the workplace, and giving us some insights on how we can properly, or hopefully, properly manage the apprentices that we are working with now. So, let me share my screen. I will just share with you the certificate of appreciation. Okay. I'm not sure. Is it showing already or not yet?
It's not showing.
Okay. Parang nag-lag ang my other computer. There's a problem with my other computer. Anyhow,
all right.
Yeah, I'll just show another for a while, sir, ha?
Grabe yung nyo, chapter president, multitasker. Gen Z ka ba?
There. Is it showing now?
Yes.
Yes. For here. Yeah, so we would like to present the Certificate of Appreciation to Mr. Erwin Pudis as our resource speaker for our sessions Drite or third, organized by UAP Cebu Chapter for the topic titled Managing Gen Z-ers in the Workplace, held this September 9, 2021, virtually, signed by the Chapter Secretary, Architect Ana Carmela Po, and me, Architect Robert P. Malaya. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you also. Thank you.
Vibrant colors and lighting solutions make rides more pleasant. Intuitive, user-friendly interfaces facilitate smooth people flow, while attractive, smart materials help keep the elevator clean, less susceptible to wear and tear, and aligned with growing health and hygiene needs. Most impressive, however, is the ability to take a leap forward with connectivity that opens a world of opportunities, enabling intelligent solutions that make life more convenient, inspiring, and delightful. By making the core of your building updatable, you're prepared to fulfill future needs and benefits beyond your imagination. Our new line of connected elevators redefines the user experience while increasing the value of your building. Enter the new era of elevators. Kone DX Class Elevators, connecting more than floors. elevator experiences are entering a new era with innovative digital capabilities and designs that integrate form and function. Vibrant colors and lighting solutions make rides more pleasant. Intuitive, user-friendly interfaces facilitate smooth people flow, while attractive, smart materials help keep the elevator clean, less susceptible to wear and tear, and aligned with growing health and hygiene needs. Most impressive, however, is the ability to take a leap forward with connectivity that opens a world of opportunities, enabling intelligent solutions that make life more convenient, inspiring, and delightful. By making the core of your building updatable, you're prepared to fulfill future needs and benefits beyond your imagination. Our new line of connected elevators redefines the user experience while increasing the value of your building. Enter the new era of elevators. Kone DX Class Elevators, connecting more than floors.